Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to explain you the rest of the two keywords, which are throw and throws, and the difference between them. So let's have a look at the first keyword here, throw. Throw keyword in exception handling is explicitly used to throw an exception using your own code. Now wait a minute, why would I want to do that? Now imagine a simple situation. There could be many situations. I just take a simple situation here where I want that the user should enter the money spent by him. Well, it could be uh, anything like 1, 5, 6, 800, 200, anything, but it cannot be negative, right? So what I want to do is ask the user to enter a value, and if the value goes negative, then I explicitly want to throw an exception. Because the Java will not throw an exception to me if I enter a negative value, but the negative money does not exist. So this is an exceptional situation for me, not for the machine, not for the Java. So Java will never throw an exception for me that okay, you have entered a negative number. So that's why I have to throw an exception myself using the throw keyword. Its general syntax is like this: use the throw keyword, and here in this particular portion you have to provide an exception object of any class, you know, like exception class or throwable class or runtime exception class or arithmetic exception class, any exception, inbuilt exception class, you know, or the customized exception class which you know. You have to create the object of that and throw it using this syntax. So you just have to write throw keyword and the name of the object here which you want to throw. Okay, let's see this with the help of example. In this example, I'm asking the user to enter a value, as you can see here. Okay, assuming that I'm asking the user to enter a value which could be the money. Obviously the money cannot be negative. Now if I enter some negative value, the compiler is not going to, the Java is not going to throw me the exception ki, okay, you have entered a negative value. So hence I'm applying my own logic here. You can see if value goes less than 0, right, then see here, I'm creating my own exception object. Right now let's say I just know one of the exception class as illegal argument exception. Okay, I'm making the object of that just like this, and hence after that I'm throwing it using the throw keyword, throw obj. Okay, this is where I created obj, and now I'm throwing it here. Okay, now remember that whenever you're throwing an exception, you have to throw it inside the try block, because if you're not inside the try block, this this created exception will directly go to the JVM, leading to again termination of your program. So definitely if you are throwing an exception yourself, make sure you throw it inside the try block, and you also make the appropriate catch block for that. Okay, so as you can see that when I created the object A and I throw the object, so this object, let's say it is created like this here. Okay, this object is created. Okay, and it sees that okay, I have been thrown inside the try block, so it goes to the catch block to search that can it be caught or not. So in this case it asks, okay, I'm of type illegal argument exception, can you catch me? So it says that yes, I'm also of type, the catch block says I'm of the type illegal argument exception, I can catch you. So this object is got an e reference variable here, and hence you can print your custom message here. Okay, so this is an example where you can throw yourself an exception object in some situations. And this particular line which I've written, 2 lines to generate and throw an object, generally it can be written in single line as well. So you can see the code here. I've written this all logic using a single line of code. If val less than 0, then throw, I've created the object here using a new keyword. So meaning that it is not necessary for me to create an object and make it hold inside the reference variable and then throw this reference variable. I can do this in one line also, as I've done here. Okay. One point to remember, that creating an exception object doesn't mean the exception is generated unless you throw it. Okay, so if you do not write this particular line through that object, so the exception is never thrown, and hence the exception, the catch block will never work. Means just by just writing this line, illegal argument exception obj is equal to new illegal argument exception, if you're not throwing it, then nothing will happen. No exception object is thrown. So exception object should be thrown explicitly using this statement. Only then the exception would be thrown. So this is it. Okay, let's see the same example in this way. I have written this line of code which I showed you in just now. This line of code I have written it inside a function fun, and I'm calling this function inside the try block. So almost the same example, but only difference is I have cut the code and pasted inside a method, and I'm calling this method here inside the try block. Okay, so the result is going to be same. So if the value is 0, I'm going to throw an exception here, exception object here, you can see. Now when the exception object is thrown from here like this object will see that, okay, am I being monitored here from where I have been thrown? So it is not monitored here from where it is thrown. So this exception object propagates to the calling method, this one. Okay, because it was not handled in this method, so it propagates at the point from where it was called. So this object propagates here. So this object now, it is under the monitor state because it is now inside the try block, and hence this object now goes to the catch block. Okay, because it sees that, okay, I'm being monitored inside the try block. Okay, so it goes to the catch block. So catch block is able to catch this object here, as I explained you previously, and hence this custom object, this custom message will be generated. So this is the example of how exception propagates. If you're not handling the code or not handling the exception generated inside a method, it propagates to the previous method from where it is called. And if you do not write the try block here, means like when the exception object is thrown into this one, into the calling method, okay, if that object is not being monitored, means if you do not write this one, I just erase it. If you do not write the try block, neither you write the catch block, so assume that it's not there. Okay, so the exception object, when it comes from here to here, it sees that, okay, am I being monitored here? So okay, I'm not being monitored here also, so it directly goes to the JVM, leading to termination of your program. So make sure that you handle the exception within the method below here, or you handle the exception from where that method is called. Okay, it is necessary, otherwise our program goes to the JVM, leading to termination of a program crashes. Now there is also a concept of rethrowing an exception. So have a look at this code here, the same code I'm talking about. Now this time I'm monitoring that code using a try catch block within this method itself. So whenever the exception object is thrown from here, if my condition goes false, it goes to the catch block here, where this message would be generated. But sometimes I would be writing this particular line of code as well inside the catch block again. This is what we call rethrowing the exception. The exception is got inside E. After catching the exception, you are throwing this E again back to the calling method here. Okay, why would I want to do that? Assume that this particular module, I'm calling this function as a module. I'm assuming that this module has been given to some developer to develop it, and if that module throws an exception, some sort of exception, so definitely the developer will handle this situation here, but it will also sometimes that developer also wants to notify the exception being generated inside this particular module to the calling module here, to the parent module. I want to inform to the parent module also कि okay, the exception occurred inside my module, so I'm informing it to you by rethrowing an exception, because if I do not rethrow the exception, I'm just catching it, I'm handling it here, so my parent module, this one, will never able to know that an exception was occurred inside my module. So uh, when you rethrow the exception like this, okay, the parent module gets to know, okay, exception object is being generated here, and definitely you have to monitor using the try block, and as it is being monitored, it will go to the exception object being rethrown will be caught here using the appropriate catch block, and that particular message can be generated by the parent module also, or the particular action can be taken by the parent module as well. Okay, so one more time I'm explaining this. So if you are rethrowing the exception from this block, means you are throwing the exception from here, it is being caught here, and it is being caught here in the reference variable e. Okay, and if you rethrow the exception here using through that e reference variable, now see this green portion here. Now you're throwing the exception object from this green portion, and the green now this green portion is not monitored by another try and catch block, so definitely the exception object propagates back to from where that method was called. Now it is necessary for you to have a try block here, okay, to monitor the exception which was thrown back by that method, and hence if you have appropriate catch block, so that exception would be caught here, okay, and the parent module can now generate its own message. Okay, here you're just here the this particular module notified that okay, exception was generated, I handled it, but now I'm informing you by rethrowing the exception, so any appropriate measure as a parent module you want to take, so just take it by using your own catch block. So this is the purpose of rethrowing an exception. Okay, let's see this in practice. I have made some code for you here. So let's say I'm asking the user to enter a value, okay, and I'm writing the same logic. If that a variable is less than 0, in that case I'm going to make my own exception object here. Let's take the example of arithmetic exception, or I could do anything, illegal argument exception. You could take arithmetic exception also, arithmetic, but since this is not sensible, I'm not doing any kind of arithmetic here, so I would rather take illegal argument, because the argument is illegal for me, illegal argument exception. That's why I'm taking the help of this class. Otherwise you could make the object of any class, you know, okay, no problem at all. Illegal argument exception. Okay, here I made the object, and here I'm throwing it through obj. Okay, and you can see that system.out, I'm just writing a line, system.out.println, and let's print that value a if the exception is not generated, println. Okay, so if the exception is generated, the object is not monitored. You can see that it's not being monitored in this block, so it will directly go to this to the method from where this method is called. Okay, and here also if it is not being monitored, my program will crash. So you can see that. Let's run and see what happens. 23. Let's enter 23, a valid value, so nothing happens because it didn't crash. So let's enter a negative value, -9, and here it is. my program is terminated because as I just told you, it is not being monitored here, it is not being monitored here as well, and hence my program crashed. Okay, so I have modified my program here and handled the exception using try catch block. And now if I enter, just a minute, something goes wrong here. Yeah, that's semicolon. Okay, let's run it again. -9, and okay, I'm catching that inside the parent message is generated. Let's say that the child module, this one, wants to catch that exception, wants to generate its own message, and also wants to just propagate that message to the parent module as well. Okay, I have caught the exception. Now any kind of message or any kind of action you want to take, you can take it. So I am rethrowing an exception to you. So let's see that how we do it. So what I'll do, I'll just write this particular line of code. I'll just cut this code, cut it, and paste it inside the try block. Paste it. Okay, and you can have a catch block also. You need to have it. I'm writing illegal argument exception E. I'm catching it right here. Okay, I can generate my own message, println. You can see that the child module is catching the exception. Child module message here. Okay, child module can generate its own message when it catches it, and after that it can also rethrow by just saying throw this variable E. Throw this variable E. Okay, I have got this exception object. Now I want to notify this to the parent module also by a rethrowing. This is what we call rethrowing an exception. Rethrowing exception. Okay, so this particular, after throwing this one, okay, this particular block is not being monitored by another try block, means it is not being nested inside another try block. So the exception object generated from this line will go to this method. Okay, and hence from here it will go to this catch block and the parent message will be generated. So let's see this, what's our result. So let's say -9 again, and see, child module printed its message and the parent module also printed its own message. Okay, so this is the demonstration of throw keyword and rethrowing an exception as well. So in my next video I'll be telling you about the throws keyword. Okay.